Welcome into Bucs Insider Live. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith, and I think hopefully we are finally not jet lagged enough that we can make some sense on the show. We're feeling good finally. I'm kind of happy the show wasn't any sooner. I don't even know what we would have talked about. Who knows? But we have an exciting win from Germany to talk about, and we know you probably have tons of questions as the Bucs head into their bye week about the team and about the season. So if you want to send us those, put them underneath the live video on Facebook in the comment section. We'll get to some of those in a little bit. So for now, just go ahead and tell me a little bit about the big picture takeaways from the game and anything that really stood out to you in terms of what this game meant to this team and some of the individuals on it.
Well, I asked Donovan Smith in the locker room after the game, I said, was this a statement game for you guys? Because they've taken some heat, right? And they've had to adjust to a lot of lineup changes. And he agreed. And really, think of the amount of time that Tom Brady had to throw in that game. He was not sacked. He was only hit one time. He had an average of 2.78 seconds from the snap to the throw, which is by far his highest average of the year this season. He's been getting rid of the ball really, really quickly and throwing a lot of short passes. But think about those passes downfield. Mike Evans caught one down the sideline. Cade Otton kind of down the seam. Chris Godwin had one. Scotty Miller, remember the one where he jumped near the goal line? Mm-hmm. He had time to look downfield and be comfortable and wait and let those plays develop. And that's a little thing we haven't seen a whole lot of out of this offense this year. It's a lot more like what we did in 2020. See, here you go with the offensive line statement game. 161 rushing yards, 0 sacks, all that. Also, the Buccaneers had their best third down game. They were 10 of 15, but really it was 10 of 13 because there were 2 kneel downs on third down. And the Bucs were 0 for 2 in the first 2 drives, needing 10 and 14 yards. So from then on, of the 11 times they tried to convert to third down, they succeeded 10 times, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. And that's why you have these extended drives. And part of that was because the good work in the running game was producing a lot of 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and they were 7 of 7 on those.
Right. Yeah.
So that all worked together to create a type of offensive output that we haven't seen a whole lot of this year. Yeah,
it felt like every storyline that had been a question mark for the team got answered in this game, right?
3rd
and 1 and third downs on both offense and defense, and the red zone. And extending the drives and not making the defense be on the field too long, faster starts. I mean, you name it.
Yep.
Every potential issue.
Except one. They still kind of lagged a little bit on defense at the end after a dominant performance. It was very much like the Atlanta
Still a little
game.
bit of a let up in the second half.
Well, not even the second half. It was like the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a little bit in the second half, because if it hadn't been for that forced fumble by Devin White, then it could have been a lot hairier. I
agree, and I was thinking about that, of how important that was, of after 5 games of no turnovers, and even
incredible.
You can say even 5.5 games, or if you want to, depending on how specific you want to get. So many games without a turnover, and that play by him, it's a reminder of how big turnovers are, of what they can do. Because I agree with you because that came not long after the Seahawks interception on the trick play,
right.
Boy, that we went from the Bucs having all the momentum to suddenly you could feel that shift happening, and it felt a little dangerous. And then Devin's play, I mean, to me,
the play of the game.
It was. It saved the momentum, and it potentially saved the game, especially when you look at the fact that they really ended up only winning by 5. It's not like it was this blowout situation.
Well, they immediately, not only did they get that, but they immediately then drove 87 yards for a touchdown. So it was a complete swing of potentially 14 points.
Right.
And so at that point it was 21-3 with about 11 minutes to play. And while the defense did have some lapses the rest of the way, they just ran out of time.
Right, yeah.
And 21-3 with 11 minutes to play, you're almost always going to win that game. So it might have seemed a little scary at the end, but the odds were never very strong of Seahawks coming all the way back.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit about not just that play, but Devin White's game overall. I mean, now we've seen that he's named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week, which is very deserving. And, I know people have probably at this point heard about the emotional side of it for him, of losing his dad a few days before the game. So we know what it meant to him personally for this game. You see him sort of acknowledging his dad after that play. But so separate from just the emotions and the personal side of it for him, in terms of what that game meant to the team and what we saw about what this means about Devin's level of play, what did that say?
Yeah, well, you recall, I'm sure, that he was the NFC Defensive Player of the Month for September. So he obviously was playing really, really well. And the Bucs offense, if you probably also recall, through the first 3 games was killing it. And I think they were averaging 9 points allowed per game, and it was the best in the league. And then, it didn't kind of hold up as much. And Devin himself took a little bit of heat for a couple weeks from outside sources. And you see this performance, and it's very much more like Devin White at his best. And that means a lot to this defense, and especially in terms of getting after the quarterback. So he had the 2 sacks, because that play counted as a sack, the one we just saw with the forced fumble.
Right.
He had another one. And now he's got, I can't remember how many he has this year, maybe 4.5 or something, but over the last, well, since he came in the league over 4 years, of off-ball linebackers, not edge rushers like Shaq Barrett, but off-ball linebackers, he's the one with the most sacks of anybody in that span. And that's a big part of what the Buccaneers can do, because the Buccaneers are, I think, maybe second in the league in sacks as a team, but we don't, I mean, Vita Vea leads us with 6.5. We don't have Shaq Barrett with 10 sacks right now. It's very much a team effort. You know, Antoine Winfield's got 3, and Devin White is a big part of that effort. He had the 2 sacks. He had another play where he just shot up the middle and disrupted a play, and I think he got credit for a quarterback hit. So that element to the game was maybe missing for a little while, but having that back is big.
Right.
And then, of course, because he did so well, we forgot to mention, or I forgot to mention, he was named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
Yep. Yeah, it's amazing, and it's so well deserved, and just so happy for him. And you know, earlier you did mention the longer drives, which of course we know also helps the defense, helps those guys be fresh to make plays like that for sure. It's one thing to know that just recently this team had struggled a little bit in terms of putting together longer drives and finishing them, but put into perspective a little bit for us how impressive it was, how long these drives were, how many of them they were doing. Did it feel impressive just because of what they've done recently, or was it actually a pretty big deal?
It's not common that the Bucs did do what they did in that game. They came into this game with 3 drives, touchdown drives of 80 or more yards in the entire first 9 games, and they had 3 in that game. They had an 88, an 87, and an 83, I think, or 86. So 3 of the top 5 longest drives of the entire season, touchdown drives, were in this game, and as you can see there on this chart. Doing that 3 times in one game is not common. At least it's not common for the Bucs. I didn't look it up for every team, but I have charts of drives going back to 2000, and I could only find 5 games, including this one, in that span where the Buccaneers had 3 80-plus touchdown drives in the same game, and they never had 4. So I don't have the information from 99 earlier, but from 2000 on, the last 23 seasons, that's as good as it's been in terms of sustaining drives. So it's not common, but it is encouraging going forward. We may not have 80-yard touchdown drives next week or the week after, but showing the ability to consistently keep moving the chains is what was encouraging.
Yeah, I feel like a couple weeks ago, Coach Bowles said in one of his availabilities about how some of these plays and drives and moments are contagious, where you just kind of need to get started, you need to get rolling a bit. And it feels like maybe that game-winning drive for the Rams was that catalyst. It was that thing to remind the team who they are, get that identity back. And then, of course, health is just such a huge factor in this, and it's why the Bucs were the healthiest team in the league the year they won the Super Bowl. That is not a coincidence.
And it wasn't the case last year.
And it was not the case.
It has not been the case this year.
Exactly. And I feel like this last game against Seattle was the closest we've seen to having a fully healthy team, because you had most of these guys week 1, but I think it's safe to say Chris Godwin, you lost him partway through the game, and he just wasn't back as much in terms of his legs under him and all of that. To feel like you have Antoine Winfield Jr. back, you have Akeem Hicks back, Julio Jones looked like Julio Jones, Chris Godwin looked more like Chris Godwin, both of those guys getting their first touchdowns. I feel like we finally saw the Bucs team that they had envisioned, and you forget how much either Brady having to learn all these new different targets, not having that consistency every day. I just feel like this is hopefully a sign of what this team can be moving forward when they're healthy. So now that it's the bye week, for you, what are the biggest things that you're going to be looking at for this back part of the season? We're past the midway point, but bye week, kind of a half and half thing. So what are the biggest takeaways you feel like you have from that beginning part that will be something you're looking for these back 7?
Well, I think you kind of brought it up earlier. The things that have been ailing the Buccaneers, most of them, 3rd and 1, 3rd and short, 3rd downs overall, red zone, just basically consistently maintaining the things they're doing well, having time to make plays downfield a little bit more, getting Chris Godwin and Julio Jones more involved, that sort of thing. That was all in evidence, as you just very well pointed out, in this game in Germany. Can it continue? Is it the beginning of a trend? And I would like to think so. But you also mentioned how coaches talk about momentum, right? And these things building on each other, or turnovers coming in bunches and so on. I don't know if that's actually true, but I understand why they feel that way, and maybe that sort of speaks it into existence because they've been through this. I mean, think about the Super Bowl year, right? Things weren't going great headed into the bye, 7-5, better than 5-5, but they weren't going great. Had lost 3 of the last 4, and then came out of that and just started rolling, right?
Right.
And then everything they were doing well every single week. And so maybe the fact that they feel like that can happen will help it happen.
Yeah, and I do think that it's so interesting how every year when it comes to the bye week, we always end up talking about how thankful we are the bye week is here to get some guys healthy. I don't remember a time where the week before the bye week we were saying, wow, look at all these guys we have back healthy, and what a luxury that is to not be in more of a desperate place, and to have a late bye like this and still feel like you're actually trending upward health-wise even before you hit the bye.
Yeah, and maybe this will help get Logan Ryan closer to returning, so they have more options on defense again. It helps that Leonard Fournette will have time to rest that hip injury a little bit longer, because hip pointers usually take between 1 and 3 weeks to recover from, depending on how serious it is. So it can still help, and then we don't forget, I don't think, I'm not saying you forgot this or anything, but a player may not be listed on the injury report, but these guys have gone through a lot, and so everyone's
kind of hurt versus injured at this point.
On Mondays,
everybody needs that week off.
They're stiff on Mondays, so having that whole week off going into next week, they should feel better.
A lot better, yeah, which is great. And let's kind of close with this. I know something we haven't talked about is Rachaad White and his incredible game that he had, over 100 yards. You brought up Leonard Fournette, and that, Rachaad White, in the wake of Fournette being out, and even before he was out, was really stepping up. And we've even seen Keyshawn Vaughn get a few carries, in these last couple games. I think he had a 10-yarder in this one. So what do you feel like you're intrigued to see in terms of just how this running back room is used? And we know that they've wanted to establish the run game like this all season, and what it is that has finally happened between them and the O-line. That do we see this moving forward? How much is each guy maybe being used? What does the Buccaneers run game look like ideally going forward?
Well, first, Keyshawn Vaughn, you were right. He had an 11-yard gain. It was actually on a reception. But it was a really good play to spin away from the tackler, and it was a key first down when they were trying to run out the clocks. So that was good.
Yeah.
Overall, obviously, Rachaad White was great, and he has shown flashes of that. And then when he got a chance to get 22 carries, you saw that somewhere along the way he's going to break free a couple times. He had a 29-yarder and an 18-yarder, which are the Bucs' 2 longest runs of the entire season. And of course, we can't not mention the incredible stiff arm that sent Quandre Diggs into another zip code.
That was amazing.
That was amazing. And it was funny hearing him talk about it, because they asked him how that happened. He said, I don't know. I started stutter stepping to set him up for something, but I didn't know what that was going to be, and then it just happened. So anyway, as for the overall game, I'm going to assume that Leonard Fournette is back for the Cleveland game, or if not, he doesn't miss much time. So we're contemplating what the backfield will look like with both Leonard and Rachaad healthy. I don't think it's going to be a flip. So Leonard's played about 72% of the snaps so far. Rachaad's played about 30. I don't think you're going to see that flip and Rachaad become the lead guy. But I do think that you will probably find Rachaad closing that gap a
maybe
little bit.
60-40.
Yeah, something more like that, because you get to the point where you can't ignore this guy's producing big plays when you get him on the field. On the other hand, Leonard Fournette has a very good track record, and the coaches trust him, Tom Brady trusts him, and we have seen that when Lenny gets hot, he can really get on a roll, like in the 2020 playoffs. So you don't want to take away that from your offense and lose the possibility of him getting on heater, right? But you also probably want to see a little bit more of Rachaad White. So I just expect to see that gap close a little bit. Probably not, if both those guys are healthy, probably not a whole lot of opportunities for Keyshawn, but we'll see.
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this edition of Bucs Insider Live. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.